What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the 14th episode of Jack's Mailbag, the series where I answer your Gamecock athletics questions. If you have a question you want answered on next week's episode, be sure to drop a comment below on this YouTube video or I'll post on the Insiders Forum on GamecockCentral.com where you can ask any of your questions, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, anything you all want to talk about. Let's do it. We'll have a good time on next week's episode. But without further ado, we got a lot of questions to get to today. So let's get going with our first question from West Ashley Gamecock, who asks, is this the end for Coach Kingston? So no, because they still have another series and then Hoover and then the NCAA tournament. So no, he's still here. So but I know what you're asking about, and we'll get a little more into it as the episode goes on. But next question. It's not a question, actually. It's more of a statement. Comes from CP Cobb, who says, not a question, but you do a great job covering Gamecock baseball. Keep up the good work. Well, I really appreciate it. That is very nice of you, CP Cobb. And yeah, I love working for Gamecock Central and getting to cover baseball. Baseball is my personal favorite sport to cover for South Carolina. So it's a good time. And I hope y'all are enjoying the coverage that not only myself, but the rest of our team at Gamecock Central has been doing this baseball season. We've been adding on a lot of new things like this show, Leaving the Yard after every game, all sorts of baseball content throughout the week with written stories and stuff. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. So if you are, let me know if there's anything you'd like to see different. We can go over that at the end of the season. I'll probably have a post on the forums after the season to kind of get an evaluation of what y'all thought. But I really appreciate the nice comment. Next question comes from Be Cocky. Does MK know? What does he know? You know, I mean, he decided to go with Ty Good and then TBA. So look, TBA is being really overused right now in the weekend rotation, and it's only going to get tougher at Tennessee. So hopefully TBA has got a good trick up his sleeve this weekend. But next question comes from Hampton Rhodes, who asks, are you going to Hoover? Yes. So I can confirm I will be in Hoover, Alabama for the SEC tournament next week, and I'll be covering the SEC tournament for South Carolina with Gamecock Central, and I am blessed to be able to go. It's going to be an exciting opportunity. This is my first time going to the baseball tournament in Hoover, and look, I've heard the stories about kind of what to expect a little bit. I'm still a little vague on what exactly it's going to be like. I know South Carolina's history is not exactly great there, but I'm hoping it's a good time. And yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting much, but I hear that you usually don't want to stay too long. So hopefully it's a good time, and yeah, I can get a lot of good work, and that's what I care about most. So I can live with wherever they send me. I don't mind at all. So it's baseball at the end of the day, and I enjoy doing my job. So next question comes from Love My Gamecocks, who asks, in your opinion, do we have any guys on the current team other than Cole Messina who will be drafted in July's MLB draft? I know we have a lot of draft eligible guys. So yeah, I think with Messina, I think it really depends on how this season wraps up. If South Carolina were to somehow get to Omaha or win the College World Series, then I don't think there's any point for Messina to come back. But I think you also have to figure out, like, okay, if South Carolina doesn't get very far, does the factor of unfinished business come into play? But you also have to think about it this way. With Messina, his brother, Carson, could be coming to South Carolina next year. He's at Somerville right now, wrapping up his senior year, I believe. But if he were to come to Carolina, why would you pass up the opportunity to play with your brother? You know, that'd be pretty cool, right? And he's a pitcher, so he could, Cole could catch him. That would be awesome. But I do think he's having too good of a season not to go to the MLB draft in July, but we'll have to see what happens. As for other guys I could potentially see getting drafted and going, Garrett Gainey, obviously, because he's out of eligibility. That would be a big one. He would be a great addition and a nice project arm to have in any farm system. Another name, Ty Good, I think is another good option. I would say Gavin Cassis, but based on the season he's having right now, I don't know if he'll get drafted. That's a good question. He has a lot of talent, and I think he's a pretty solid left-handed hitter, but he's definitely taken a step back compared to last year, and we'll have to see what happens with that. But guys like Ethan Petrie aren't eligible yet since he's only a sophomore, but I'm probably blanking on a few other guys. Chris Veach, I could see being another guy getting drafted and going, but Yeah, there's probably more that I'm forgetting on the spot here, but there's definitely a lot of talent, a lot of shakeups probably going to happen this offseason, like it always does. But that's just college baseball at the end of the day. Next question also comes from Love My Gamecocks, who asks, "What have you heard on Eli Jersenbeck entering the MLB draft, being he will be 21 prior to July?" I've gotten this question more often than not on these segments, and with Jers, I'm not sure. I don't think anyone's really heard anything on what the deal is going to be with him. My take has always been come back to South Carolina, and I'll explain it real quick. My thinking is that why go to the MLB draft? Go down the minor league rabbit hole for 2, 3, 4, maybe longer years and get paid, live paycheck to paycheck, basically. Like, unless you're going to be one of these high end top 3 round guys, what are you really making financially? Like, it must be good enough for some guys to go. But at the same time, like, why not come back to South Carolina? You're also coming off Tommy John surgery, so you haven't pitched in over a year. That date, I think, is probably already past the 1 year mark. So we're coming to that point, and it's also like, teams maybe or maybe not will want to take a chance on you with you coming off Tommy John. So there's a lot of things to think about. And I think with South Carolina and Jers, him coming back would really be beneficial because he gets to probably be in the weekend rotation. He gets a season to kind of prove himself that he could probably go out there, dominate next year, and be a really high pick. So I think that there's more pros than cons to coming back, but we'll have to see. Next question comes from Papa DeLuca. What do you think King needs to do to survive? Is making a super again, but losing it enough? Is simply making a regional enough? For Kingston, so I said I'd dive a little more deeper into the whole Kingston thing. And look, I don't shy away from the questions. I mean, if you want to look at some crazy questions I've gotten, go back to the Clemson video from early March. That one had a lot of wild questions in there. But I do this for the fans, and I enjoy answering these questions to the best of my ability. But look, I give my honest take too. So my thing is with Mark Kingston. Obviously, I'm not oblivious to it. No one is. People do not want him back next year, and I get it. You want to see South Carolina be the cream of the crop in college baseball, but here's a sad reality that it's not 2010 anymore. It's not 2011 anymore. You kind of have to look at it like there's a lot of good teams in college baseball. Almost everyone in the SEC is really good at college baseball, and that makes it tough because you have so many different teams in this league that can go out and win any given weekend. And look, South Carolina, they've had a little bit of an up and down year. They're 1 game under 500 right now in SEC play. So obviously you want to be better from that aspect. And I also understand the idea of wanting a change. Maybe it's culture change. Maybe it's philosophy change. Whatever the case might be, I understand that. But at the same time, it's not like King has done everything wrong this season. Like, I think making the lineup change for more offense as opposed to defense has been really strong. And some of his bullpen decisions, I think, are a little suspect at times. I think he could do a much better job with his bullpen management. And that also goes in part with Matt Williams making those decisions as well. But at the same time, it's like he hasn't done anything, at least in my opinion. And y'all can have your takes on it. I don't think he's done anything like outlandishly wrong to, automatically think, oh, this guy cannot come back next year. Like the wins and losses, it's not great right now. And at the same time, I mean, is he the one out there swinging the bat and striking out? Is he the one out there giving up home runs? I mean, I'm not trying to put this on the players by any means. I think the players are doing a pretty good job this season and, having a lot of fun doing it. But at the same time, you can't just blame this all on one guy, right? At the end of the day, it's a two-part system. Kingston makes the decisions along with Matt Williams and the coaching staff, but the players have to go out there and execute. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and I don't think – I mean, at the end of the day, you can blame it on one guy. That's typically how it goes. The manager is always going to be the one to get the criticism first. But I do think some of it is a little bit unwarranted, and that's just me being, as honest as I can about it, unbiased as I can. I have no horse in the race, so I'm just telling you how I see it and what I think is fair. But I totally understand both perspectives on keeping him versus not keeping him. But we'll have to see. There's still a little bit of time till the summer, and then we'll have a real answer on what the future for South Carolina looks like. But I do think something needs to change, and I don't know what it could be. But the fact that South Carolina is probably not going to be hosting a regional should kind of speak volumes to, yeah. So, but kind of answering the question finally a little bit, and not going on my tangent any longer. To survive another year, I would say making a super would help his case. Look, like I said, things have been a little up and down for South Carolina, but if you get hot this week and leading into Hoover and the postseason, I mean, when you play your best baseball, you hope it's at the end of the year, and I think that would be a good sign for South Carolina moving forward. But we'll just have to see what happens. So, hope that kind of answers your question a little bit. Next question comes from Washington Cock, who asks, Jack, assuming that Missouri is the worst baseball stadium you have been to, in parentheses, because you bragged on it so much in the SEC, what is the best one you have visited? How does Founders Park rank with the rest of the SEC in your opinion? I'll answer the last part of that question first. Founders Park, I think, is a beautiful stadium. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a beautiful SEC ballpark. I do think the fan turnout this year has been pretty underwhelming, in my opinion. I think in years past, the crowds have just been way bigger. And I wasn't around to watch the 2010, 11 type seasons just because I didn't really care about South Carolina baseball at the time since I just moved here. But I think Founders is right in the middle of that pack of like pretty good in the SEC. Now, my favorite stadium I have been to in the SEC, I would have to say is Florida. And I've been to Gainesville twice now. I went earlier this season, and then obviously, as some of y'all know, I covered the Super Regional last year. And it's a beautiful ballpark, man. Conjuring Family Ballpark in Gainesville. If you ever had the chance to go visit it, it's gorgeous. I love the aesthetic of it. I like the patio. I don't know what you call it. It's called the Disney Grove with the Z in the outfield, and you can like sit and like it kind of reminds me of like if you've ever seen Petco Park in San Diego, where like they had the little like beach area with the lawn chairs and stuff in the outfield. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. I don't know if the Padres still have that, but it reminds me of that. And then you have the berms in the outfield and stuff, and then just the weather's always pretty good. And I love going to Florida. Florida is one of my favorite states to visit on vacations and stuff. And obviously, that's no surprise coming as a big Disney Universal theme park guy. So, but at the same time, I love going to Florida. And Conjuring Family Ballpark, one of my favorites. But at the same time, honorable mention, probably Tuscaloosa with Alabama, the Joe. I've only been to a handful of stadiums, but I would say Missouri and Tennessee are kind of not too great. So, especially Missouri. That place was awful. Next question comes from York Dev, who asks, hey, Jack, what do you think, or do stats tell us what the level of SEC competition was when Ray Tanner made the 3-4 year run versus the present level of competition? This is a great question. The competition, in my opinion, has kind of improved over the last few years. Back in the early 2010s, I think South Carolina was obviously one of the best in the SEC in college baseball as well. And you had your usual suspects like Florida, LSU, teams like that have always been very good in college baseball in the SEC. But nowadays, I think the level is improving because, you got a team like Alabama that's getting better. You have Ole Miss, Mississippi State, who are very good teams as well. And they have been for years now. Both those programs have won College World Series over the last few years. But I think every weekend in the SEC has become increasingly tough. And look, you have your teams like Auburn and Missouri who haven't been very good this year. But also, it's never easy going there. So I think from that aspect, the competition is harder now than it was back then. And that's just in general with college baseball. I think there's a lot of good teams around the country. You see like a team like Tulane, sweeping ECU over the weekend. And like teams like Southern Miss and Coastal and the Carolinas are very good in college baseball right now. Let's not forget that too. So the competition, like I've kind of been repeating here, has just been very tough the last few years. And that's like I said before, with not living in the past anymore. Everyone's catching up and everyone is good at what they do. So It's just harder, and that's kind of the reality of the situation. And our final question comes once again from Love My Gamecocks, who asks, how many incoming recruits are you hearing might sign coming out of the 2024 MLB draft? I know PJ Morlando likely will go, but who are the others you feel like might sign? To be honest, I'm not sure exactly who's going to sign and who's not. It's very tough to tell. I've spoken to a few of the guys from those who have committed in the class of 2024, 25, 26. I think maybe I've even talked to someone from 2027 if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that. But from doing interviews with some of those guys in the past on their commitments and stuff, it seems like they're very bought into South Carolina and what they can do. So I do think South Carolina, assuming everything kind of the bigger puzzle kind of stays together after this summer, I do expect a lot of these guys to end up coming to South Carolina. Now, the obvious ones that probably won't are PJ Morlando and Carson Messina from Somerville. And those guys are just really good. I definitely expect them to be higher up high school draft picks in the MLB this summer in July, especially PJ. I would be shocked if he's not a first round pick this year. Just a very good, talented player. And why pass up all that money? He could get that NIL money at Carolina, but it probably wouldn't be the same. But we'll have to see what happens. But those are just some that I could think of right now. More specifically, I do think South Carolina will end up bringing some guys. We'll have to see what happens. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Jack's Mailbag. Again, if you have any questions you want answered on next week's episode, the 15th episode coming up next week, be sure to drop a comment below on this YouTube video. Or, like I said before, I'll have a post on the Insiders Forum on GamecockCentral.com where you can ask all of your questions. I will be in Knoxville this weekend for South Carolina's matchup with top-ranked Tennessee. Should hopefully be a good one. Hopefully the tide will turn for the Gamecocks and things look a little better this weekend. But be sure to stay tuned for all your coverage on GamecockCentral.com. Until then, I'll see you later, guys.